It's Jonathan Aguilar here for Pro Boxing Fans. I'm delighted to be joined by former world champion and top commentator slash broadcaster Chris Algieri, all the way from Florida. Chris, how's things going? Big win for you a few weeks ago.
Yeah, all good. Just dealing with the post-win feelings and discussions and all that, and just looking for what's next.
Let's start with what I mentioned, the commentary broadcast stuff you do with DAZN and Matchroom. How much do you enjoy doing that stuff? Has that always been something you've wanted to do, and how have you found you've adjusted to it?
I love it, and it's not really something that I ever expected to do, but it's something that I think I've been doing since I was probably 12 years old, sitting on my living room floor with my family. I've always talked through fights and what's going on, and generally being the most educated guy in the room when it comes to fighting, most people would listen. So I've had a lot of practice non-professionally before having these opportunities, but yeah, no, I feel very comfortable with it now. I enjoy it. You know, it's a lot of travel, it's a lot of studying, and it's a lot of like research and hanging and talking to fighters, which I thoroughly enjoy. So.
Have you noticed the feedback you've been getting? I see mainly positive feedback online on social media. Is that something you've sort of noticed as well?
I'm not big on that. When it comes to social media, I'm very set it and forget it. But I've heard from a lot of people who hire me that the social media stuff has been very, very positive, which makes me think I'm doing something wrong, because generally social media isn't the most positive place. So
is that something you want to do sort of long term after you officially retire?
I mean, potentially, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it fits into my lifestyle well. It keeps me within the sport that I love. So, and just, keeps me relevant with the current crop of fighters. I think if I wasn't doing anything like that, I wouldn't have access to so many of the young guys that are coming up now, who are going to be, legends by the time I'm long gone.
Mm. Well, you're very much still active, and you were out a few weeks ago, back in the ring after 2 years against Mikkel LesPierre. Went the full 10 rounds. How was it being back in the ring? How did you assess your performance, Chris?
I felt great. Physically, I don't think there was any ring rust at all. A little bit mentally, going through some of the emotions of the early parts of the fight. But once I found my groove, everything was firing on all cylinders. My body felt great. My mind, my eyes, my reactions. So I'm very happy with the performance, and I'm also happy with the fact that I had somebody in front of me that wasn't a walkover. We knew we had a tough guy in front of us, tough style, southpaw, slick, a guy whose only losses were to world champions. So for me to go out there and perform the way I did, win the way that I did, I think was a big statement.
What can we expect from you coming up? Are you aiming to get out before the end of the year?
Yeah, for sure. I want to get one more for this year, so we can get at least 2 fights in for 2021, and then looking for the biggest opportunities possible next year.
Do you know what sort of level you want to fight at? Would it be another tough challenge, a guy coming up, or you don't know yet?
I don't really know yet. Whatever the opportunities are, I'm ready for a big fight. In terms, like I said, in terms of ring rust and physically, the way that I felt, the way that my training is going recently, I'm not concerned about that. In past comebacks, I felt like, all right, I need one more before I have one of those. I don't feel like that at all. I feel like I can go right into a big fight if the opportunity presents itself, in the right way. But I'm also, as much as I'm 37 years old and in a rush, I'm not in a rush. I never have been in my career. I take opportunities that best fit, my situation. So we'll just go from there.
What would you say your ambitions are towards the end of your career? Is it to become world champion again, get those opportunities, or just be in the biggest fights possible?
I mean, both, because it's about legacy now, right? So for me, I've accomplished everything that I've ever wanted to accomplish in terms of my boxing career. Gone far and above what a lot of people expected out of me. I'm very happy with what I've done in my career. So, from now, it's just, like I said, it's legacy. I want to be world champion again. I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to be world champion. And that's been my mindset my entire career. And, and then in terms of making big fights, I've had some tremendously big fights in my career against some of the best guys that we've ever seen. So I like those kind of fights. I like those opportunities. I like, sharing rings, sharing space with those kinds of guys. So yeah, whatever, either way, I want to be world champion, but big fights are always welcome.
Well, look forward to hearing some news towards the end of the year for your next outing. Chris, big fight in the welterweight division on Saturday night. Manny Pacquiao and Yordenis Ugas, obviously late replacement. Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old, back in a world title fight. Did you think all those years ago when you fought him that he would still be active fighting the top contenders at this age?
No, we thought he was old when I was fighting him, and now I'm the same age he was when he fought me. So
Right.
I'm realizing my concept of age and athleticism has really changed, and I guess was warped, which I think a lot of people's are. But I was really impressed with his last outing when he beat Keith Thurman the way that he did. At 40 years old, 40 plus years old, beating undefeated world champions and guys like, Keith Thurman's a real world champion. He didn't just get a vacant title and, not one of those guys. He wasn't an interim champion. He's a real champion. So for him to dispatch him the way that he did is really testament to Manny Pacquiao and how much of a living legend that he is.
Mm. Obviously, the change from, Ugas was meant to fight Maidana, who was who's orthodox. Pacquiao was meant to fight Errol Spence Southpaw.
Mm.
For which fighter is it the more difficult adjustment, would you say?
Well, you can look at it from the aspect that Ugas has nothing to lose, right? He's jumping up in class and biggest step up of his career. Huge opportunity, big payday. Last minute, he could take the stance like, whatever happens. I can go out there and shock the world, or I can be the victim of what everyone thinks is going to happen anyway. So for him, there's not as much pressure. And for Pacquiao, it's the opposite. There's a ton of pressure because this could be his last fight. And, he's lost to guys that we didn't expect him to lose to in the past before, albeit some of them very, very dubious decisions. But, it happens. So there's a lot to lose there for Manny, obviously. I understand that he didn't want to sit around and wait for Spence, being 42 years of age, going through a hard training camp, when the guy has a ton to do outside of boxing. To just sit around and go back to training camp, one, I don't think would be healthy for him at his age. And two, it's going to take away from all the other things that he does in terms of the political space, in terms of what he does back in his country. So I don't really think that was an option. Plus, it's a payday. So for Pacquiao, I think that's a big part of it as well. So for him, he's got to take this fight. I just hope that the scope and the magnitude of this particular matchup is enough to get him excited, so he goes out there and is the Manny Pacquiao that we expect.
Since Yordenis Ugas has come in and replaced Errol Spence, the sort of narrative from boxing fans seems to be that this is a far easier fight. The Manny Pacquiao has far too much experience, far too much know-how for Ugas. Do you see it that way, or do you believe that Ugas has a real chance in this fight as world champion as well?
I don't think Ugas is an easy fight for any welterweight in the world. He gave Shawn Porter fits in that fight. It was a very, very good fight, very tightly contested, and Shawn is one of the best guys in the world. So that shows you there, right there. And also, Shawn is a very difficult style to deal with. So Ugas also has a very difficult style to deal with, and I don't care who you are. I do believe that he has the opportunity in this fight to have some success. I don't think he's going to win. Stylistically, just the matchup in terms of what Manny Pacquiao brings to the table and what Ugas is. Manny's the definition of a tough style to deal with. So, there's that. But I think people who are overlooking Ugas, it's just because they don't know who he is. And if you do your homework and you look into him, you understand that he's a very, very talented fighter. And this is not a walk in the park.
You've obviously shared the ring with Manny Pacquiao. What surprised you, would you say, the most? What were you expecting going into the fight? And what would you say the one thing that surprised you most about his style?
It's his angles. It's his ability to create angles, to still hit hard while being what looked considered. In times I considered him off balance and was still able to crack hard. And that was very difficult to deal with. I wouldn't expect that. I've been in with punchers my entire career. in Ruslan Provodnikov, I knew when I was in positions where he couldn't hurt me. I knew that I was off center or off angle, or he was off balance. And I'm like, even if he does hit me now, it's not going to be a hard shot. Manny wasn't like that. There were times where I thought I was safe, and I wasn't, and so that was really surprising. And the punches that you don't see, the surprising ones are the ones that hurt you the most. And he hits hard, so there's always that. But yeah, and also he's got offbeat rhythm, and he's able to change that, which is a skill that all great fighters have. Something I utilize a lot as well. But he's very good at making that little bit of shift and changing his rhythm so he can stay just ahead of his opponents. And we've seen him do that with a lot of guys where he shuts them out because he just stays one step ahead, being just awkward enough, just being off rhythm enough. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So from when you fought him to, say, the Keith Thurman fight, did you notice any particular differences from him? Did you notice reflexes slightly slowing down, and how much of that is a factor, do you think, on Saturday night?
Well, he doesn't fight 3 minutes of any round anymore. So that was one thing I really saw in the Keith Thurman fight. He chose when he was going to engage. He would explode, but other times in the round he was resting or doing very little, which is not the Manny Pacquiao that I fought, which is not the Manny Pacquiao of old. The guy, there was 3 minutes, it was nonstop. And I think we've seen him shift. Some of it has to do with the weight class as well, not just age, but I think it's a factor of both. At 126 and 130, the guy was shot out of a cannon. For 3 minutes every round, he was throwing a million punches and was nonstop. And then in 40s and in 40 and 147 and his late 30s, slowed down isn't the right word because the speed was still there. He's still very explosive, but it wasn't as consistent. And I think now, especially, you see him hitting the body more. He's much more in control of the space. He wants to slow his opponent down as well. And even in that fight, he was able to really handcuff Thurman, from throwing too many punches and slowed the pace, which is not something you think about from Manny Pacquiao.
Mm. So just last one on Manny. In terms of his power, from what you said before, is it because of the angles he creates that makes his power so different to perhaps anyone else you've ever fought?
It's a combination because one, he's very fast, so speed kills. When you hit with a shot that force production is important for generating power and hurting guys, and he has that. He's very quick. Two, he's got heavy hands, so it's very difficult to explain this to people who don't get punched in their face all the time. Some people just have bricks, it feels like, in their gloves. Manny's one of those guys. And then add that to the angles and the fact that he's hitting you with shots you don't see. So you got heavy hands coming at you very fast from angles you don't see. Mm-hmm. Very, very dangerous puncher.
Just moving away from that fight, Chris, Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter was ordered by the WBO. It seems like that is heading to a purse bid on Friday. What's your thoughts on the fight itself? Do you like the matchup?
I do. It's a great fight. I spoke to Shawn about it last week. He loves the fight, and I think it's a great matchup I think it's a great match for both guys, for their legacies and also for the sport. These are the kind of fights that we need to see Terence Crawford in, because he doesn't have that list of super opponents that you would expect from someone who is a pound for pound guy. And I think that's the only thing holding him back, because his skill set is what he does to guys in front of him is pound for pound. But you need to have a proper dance partner in order to go down in history.
There's a few more reports going around that Amir Khan may be fighting Kell Brook. We don't want to jinx it because we said it so many times, but that's the reports. What's your thoughts? I mean, the interest doesn't seem to be what it once was, but there's still people talking about the fight, and I'm sure people would want to see it.
My first thought, who cares? That was the first thing in capital. Who cares? It's 5, 6, 7 years too late. They're neither one of them, are the same guy that they were, but it's still an intriguing matchup. And if I think about it a little more, I'm like, I would want to see it. It's where they are in their careers. Kell has been a little more active, but Amir Khan's Amir Khan. He's got that blistering hand speed. He's one of the fastest, most talented guys that we've seen in our generation. So, and I've always thought that Kell Brook was a very, very solid fighter. But boxing takes a lot out of you. So it depends on how much is left in both the guys. They've both been in some tough fights and took some really hard losses.
Would you edge to anyone if it got made?
Honestly, I don't know enough about where Amir Khan is in terms of physical, mental, and emotional stance. He's been so far removed from the sport; it'd be really difficult to assess that. And Kell too, coming off a really a bad loss to Terence Crawford. During the, I think that was early or the end of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I know he trained really hard for that fight. He was really excited for that fight, and it obviously didn't work out and ended very abruptly. But so you got to see where these guys' mindsets are at. Are they 1 foot in the retirement grave, or are they really want to be here? So that really matters. And I think from the outside, people may not understand this, but psychology has way more to do with this than anything else. Everybody at the top is super talented, super skilled, strong, fast, and in great shape. Psychology is the thing that really separates guys. So not on being able to assess where those guys are at in terms of that makes it really difficult for me to make any kind of idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I get that. And when you talk about those attributes you need at the top, I mean, the welterweight division, I can't remember really a time where you've had this amount of talent as well as the talent coming through. You look at Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz, Rashidi Ellis, we've got Conor Benn here. Who do you think is the next one? The next star coming through?
My 2 guys are Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis. I love Ennis' style. That boxing smoothness. He's got that East Coast American style. I love the way he fights. But Virgil Ortiz is a monster. I was so impressed with him last week when he dismantled Kavaliauskas, who is a very, very top guy. He's one of those guys who's just below that front rung of the 47-pounders. And for him to take him apart the way he did was very impressive. Getting through a little adversity in the beginning and then coming back to drop him 5 times and put an emphatic victory, the way he did is really impressive. So that's another situation. It's like Ennis is going to need those dance partners so we can really assess him. I'm curious to see where he's going to end up, but those 2 are kind of the top of the heap in my mind.
And do you like what you've seen from Conor Benn? I know you 2 were together in Vegas a few months ago. Have you been impressed by him?
Yeah, I mean, especially what he did with his last opponent, and it's unfortunate about the COVID situation with Granados, because I think that was going to be a really telling fight, because Granados is one of those guys. He's given everybody trouble, in those 40 and 47 pounders. It's also taking those American fighters and having him go against them, I think, is really important. Even the guys who are considered journeymen or gatekeepers, the American guys they're different. They're different than the UK fighters. So having him being tested against those guys, I think, is definitely the next step and is really smart move for his team to see where he's at. And I think that Granados fight's going to really tell us a lot.
Chris, really appreciate you jumping on Pro Boxing Fans today. Do you want to add anything else? What can fans expect from yourself heading into this to the latter part of the year?
Yeah, just stay tuned. I'm looking to get back in there before the end of the year. Body feels good, so I want to get back into training. I really want to make this last run a good one. So I'm going to bring in my all like I always do.
Will that be on Triller or any platform?
I'm a mercenary, man. I go where the money's at.
Fair enough. Chris, really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll speak again soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Anytime.